Hello everyone and welcome back. How are you today? Well, it's great to see already we have some comments. Good morning everyone, or should I say good afternoon? Yeah. Okay, so I just want to let everyone know that today I'm going to be presenting from my office computer, as you can see. So if you hear some of my coworkers talking, that's why. So please understand about that. Good, good. All right. Good. It's good to see everyone. Luna, good to have you back. Jongdae Woon, good to see you again. This is great. All right. So let me go over our schedule for today. What are we talking about? Let's see. All right, so we're going to be dealing with two letters which have an abundance of key expressions and idioms which native speakers use on a daily basis. So I thought that those would be useful for you. Okay, so the first letter is going to talk about discrimination. What is discrimination? Well, that's one of the things we'll talk about today. The second letter will be someone responding to the news of Bill and Melinda's divorce. Guys, have you heard about this? One of the most famous couples in the world, Bill and Melinda Gates, they're getting divorced pretty soon, which really caught the world by surprise. So we're going to learn about this in the second half of class, okay? So this is today's schedule. Let's start with discrimination. The first letter is talking about something that happened in Daegu, South Korea. You guys all know where Daegu is. It's sort of like in the middle of South Korea, isn't it? Okay, so there were some complaints that some people were experiencing prejudice. So there were several news articles. This is just one I wanted to share with you. So I'll just read the first few paragraphs. Seoul, March 4th, so very recently, the construction of a two-story mosque in a residential area in a neighborhood near the National University in Daegu has been delayed indefinitely. That means the construction has been delayed forever. The construction halt occurred after residents staged a group protest against the construction at the mosque in their neighborhood. Residents submitted a petition to the local district office, citing loud noise, offensive odor, and the infringement of property rights as the reasons for their opposition. Okay, so in summary, there was a mosque that was being built in this neighborhood, but the residents were not happy about it for various reasons. But really, this begs the question, is there some discrimination happening here? Because for everyone who lives in Korea, we know that Christian churches are very prevalent all around the country. Like, one of the things that surprised me when I first started living in Korea was all of these red and white crosses all over the place. Back in the day, there were a lot of churches. Okay, so Christian churches are very common in Korea. So I want to ask you, why was there such opposition to the construction of this mosque? A different religion, but just a place of worship, basically the same thing. What do you think? We're going to talk about this later, so just keep this in mind that as we read the letter, it's sort of talking about this incident, okay? Okay, I just want to make sure, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, if you guys can't hear me, just let me know. Yeah, good, I think some of you may have heard about this story. So as for our pre-reading questions, I want to talk about some of these basic topics. What is discrimination? Can you give an example? Second question, what is a stereotype? Can you give an example? What is the difference between a monoethnic society and a multicultural society? Okay, so think about these questions, and I'm going to bring the camera back to me because I want us to be having a conversation here. So actually, you know what? I think it would be a good idea for me to copy and paste these questions for your review and consideration. So I will do that right now. Right, Luna, you make a good point. So on the map, Tegu is spelled with a T, and I think that may be an old way to spell the city. Nowadays, we spell it with a D. So it might be a difference between the old style spelling and the new spelling. Yeah, thanks for bringing that out, that discrepancy. Right, so treating somebody unfairly is discrimination. So if we treat someone unfairly based on where they come from, what they look like, different characteristics that they can change, that could be considered discrimination. And there are different types of discrimination. There's very direct discrimination, but also indirect discrimination that we barely notice. So yeah, some good points. Dongdae 176, thanks for bringing that out. All right, so while you're thinking about that, I want to give you my answers. The dictionary definition of discrimination is the unjust treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, or sex, gender. Okay, so this is discrimination. So I'll give you an example. Did you know that Ivy League universities in the United States are being sued because they allegedly discriminated against Asian American applicants? So it was said that if you're Asian, you have a disadvantage when it comes to getting into these high-level universities, because the universities want to ensure that their campuses are diverse. So they have quotas. A certain amount of white people can get in, a certain amount of black people, a certain amount of Latino, etc. So because of these quotas, you were actually less likely to enroll in these high-level universities because of the way you look, your ethnicity, your ethnic background. Okay? So this is a very famous example of discrimination against the Asian Americans. And these days, you guys are probably familiar that there are protests, anti-discrimination protests all around the world. So this is a topic that has recently come into the spotlight. Okay? Next question. What is a stereotype? Can you give an example? According to the dictionary, a stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. So it always helps to understand these concepts to have an example. So let's go over these groups of people. You know, what are some stereotypes when it comes to women, Asians, and even different careers, lawyers and police officers? Okay. Guys, no doubt you can think of many stereotypes. Every group has stereotypes associated with them. Some things that came to mind. For women, there's a stereotype that women are poor drivers. I don't know if this stereotype exists in Korea, but in the US, that's a stereotype. Asians. There's a stereotype that Asians are good at math. Okay? Now, this is oversimplified. Obviously, this isn't true. Obviously, there are plenty of women who are very good at driving. There are plenty of Asians who suck in math, but these are examples of stereotypes. What about lawyers? Well, I'm sure many of you would agree, along with politicians, lawyers are considered, or they're stereotyped as being dishonest. Okay, so there's a stereotype of dishonesty there. Police officers, okay, they like to eat donuts. So there's a stereotype that police officers are very unhealthy eaters. Now, guys, why is this such a big deal? These are basically harmless stereotypes, but some stereotypes are not so harmless. Actually, some are very harmful because it causes certain groups of people to be discriminated against. Okay? Last question. What is the difference between a monoethnic society and a multicultural society? Well, this should seem pretty intuitive. Basically, a monoethnic society is comprised of mostly just one culture. Multicultural societies have many ethnicities and cultures coexisting together. For example, China is considered to be predominantly a monoethnic country with 91.6% of the population being Han Chinese. So mostly just one ethnicity. Similarly, South Korea is a monoethnic country because although there are some small ethnic minorities in Korea, they just account for 1% of the South Korean population. So guys, I'm sure you would agree with this. But if you disagree, feel free to let me know. I'm going to switch the conversation back to camera. And I want to ask you, do you have any questions about this topic? Can you think of more stereotypes that are very common in day-to-day life? All right. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so Bay Frenchie, thank you for your comment. These days, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, or at least I think it's because of this, people with an Asian background have been targeted. So yeah, there have been lots of protests against Asian hate crimes, against violence against black people. It's a really big deal these days, especially in North America and Europe, I think. Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Good, good, good. Yeah. So I really appreciate this comment because it shows honesty. Thank you for this. Jongdae176, he says, I don't want to admit it, and I do believe that I'm open-minded person, but sometimes I'm surprised at myself for having these certain stereotypes. And I think you bring out a good point. Stereotypes are natural because it's human nature to form generalizations about the world, okay? So based on what we see, we form these ideas about the way the world is. So yeah, I do think that you may be open-minded, and it's just natural as humans to have these stereotypes, to maybe be a little biased. So don't be too hard on yourself. We're just talking about this, but thank you very much. Okay, so one commenter says that some people say that there's discrimination in Korea against different ethnicities. I do agree with that. However, I do also want to counterpoint that Korea also, I think you guys are doing a good job in many aspects. So I'm going to get to that later. But yeah, regarding the whole mosque thing, I think that if that were to happen in North America, it would have been a much bigger deal, right? Really good, guys. Thank you so much for your comments. They really help me out. Let's move on. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into the letter now. Dear Professor Noland, that's me. Recently, one of my friends said that I'm ignorant and prejudiced against ethnic minorities. I don't take these accusations lightly. In fact, I've always considered myself quite open-minded. I've traveled to several countries around the world: Canada, England, France, Germany, Italy. I even have made several foreign friends that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. I like foreigners. I really do. Okay, I believe you. Okay. But I guess I should tell you the story first. I live in a neighborhood called Buku in Daegu. Some time ago, Muslims started building a mosque near my town. They say that the mosque is intended to cater to the religious needs of Muslim students and foreigners living in the area. Daegu is home to more than 5,000 Muslims. Of course, I believe that everyone has the right to worship as they see fit. But why does it need to be here, so close to where I live? There's a saying in Korea, I'm going to have to ask you guys how to translate that later. But anyway, it means that they are taking over the place. The diversity is making some people uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, there was recently a large protest to put an end to the construction project. Although I didn't join, I told my friend that I can understand why some people may have objections to the mosque being constructed in our neighborhood. My friend was really shocked when he heard me say this. They are just afraid because of stereotypes about Muslims, he told me. Banning the mosque is a type of discrimination against Muslims. After all, there are already so many Christian churches in the area. Nobody complains about that. I think that my friend has a point. Cultural diversity is the way of the future. I am sure most Muslims are lovely people. All I am saying is that I can understand both sides of the story. I don't think that my neighbors are bad people. They are just not used to living in a multicultural society. Professor Noland, I just want to know what is the best way to view this situation. Maybe your viewers can help me. Thank you for reading my letter, Anonymous. Okay, so guys, I want you to think. We're going to go over the letter one more time, sentence by sentence, but I want you to think, what advice would you give this person? What do you think about the people who protested the construction of the mosque? So think about it, but don't answer yet. I'm going to give you some time to collect your thoughts. Okay, so this is the letter. We'll talk about this. But first, we're going to analyze the letter sentence by sentence. This letter contains several English expressions that you may find useful. So very short, just 6 today. Just 6, bear with me, and then we'll talk together, okay? I know sometimes I talk too much. I'm sorry about that. All right, so the first word, ignorant. This just means to lack knowledge or awareness in general. So to be uneducated or unsophisticated, somebody who is unintelligent or stupid. So we normally call people who are racist or people who are prejudiced or don't have like the new ideas as ignorant. The writer says, recently one of my friends said that I'm ignorant and prejudiced against ethnic minorities. Okay, so prejudice against, what does that mean? Having or showing an unfair dislike of a person or group because of some characteristic, as race or religion. Okay, take something lightly. to regard something without much seriousness, to be very casual or carefree about something. So when the writer says, I don't take these accusations lightly, what is he saying? Well, this is the same thing as saying, I take these accusations seriously. I don't want to be considered as an ignorant person, okay? So these are some very heavy topics in our society, so I think that all of us would do well not to take them lightly. It's a really good thing to talk about, okay? Even if you disagree. So let's make a sentence. We should not, blah, blah, global warming, blah, blah. Give you a moment. Think about it. Okay, hopefully you thought about it. We should not take global warming lightly. And I'm saying this because it is so hot. We definitely can tell that the climate's changing. Humans are really causing damage to the environment. This is not something to take lightly. Keep in touch with someone. To maintain contact with another person in regular intervals and keep up to date with their lives. So the writer says, I even made several foreign friends. I keep in touch with them. Okay. Guys, who do we usually keep in touch with? Distant relatives, okay, like cousins or uncles. People we met in school. This is a really important one. You guys meet people in elementary school all the way to university. You keep in touch with these people. This is your social network. Ex-coworkers, so true. All right, next. Cater to. To assist or provide something to a business or person. So, according to the letter, they say that the mosque is intended to cater to the religious needs of Muslim students and foreigners. Okay, let's make a sentence. See how well you understood this expression. Make a sentence. English signs can be found everywhere in Seoul to, okay, I'll give you a few seconds, to cater to foreigners who can't speak Korean, okay? To assist. To have a point. One's point of view makes sense and is worth considering. Okay, so the writer says, I think that my friend has a point. Cultural diversity is the way of the future. So what is he saying? He's saying that his friend's opinion is worthwhile. It's worth considering. Let's make a sentence. We're trying to lose weight. Should we really be eating ice cream? Don't worry, it's low fat. You're not going to gain weight. Oh, you? Oh, you? What do we say next, guys? Oh, you have a point. It's low calorie, so we can eat this ice cream. Okay? Your opinion is worth considering. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take a break. I talked too much. I want to ask you, how would you respond? What advice would you give this person? What do you think about the people who protested the construction of the mosque? So I'm going to copy these questions in the chat box so that we can all take a look at it and talk about it together. I'm going to do that right now. All right. All right, we're back. So let's have a conversation. I'm going to share this with you. Oh, wow, and it looks like we have more comments. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Luna, I do agree it is a hard topic. Um, we it's something that's really hard to talk about, and a lot of it's because there are there are two sides, and both sides make sense in some points with regards to some points. Yeah. May Frenchie says, discriminated against women in workplaces in any country. Yeah, so I don't want you guys to think that I'm picking on Korea, because think about it. America, my home country, is very multicultural, and whenever different groups of people have to coexist, you're going to naturally have this friction, right? Okay. Okay, guys, think about think about it. I'm going to tell you my answer. Tell me if you agree or disagree with what I have to say. Okay? Good, good. All right, so Brandon's response. To whom it may concern, the reality is that we are living in a multicultural world. Yes, it's true that this is a mono-ethnic society. I'm talking about Korea, guys. I live in Korea, you live in Korea. We're talking about Korea. And to be honest, there is nothing wrong with that. Korea is a shining beacon of freedom and prosperity, known and famous throughout the world. Your country and people have accomplished so much in such a little amount of time, you should be proud. However, we cannot deny that multiculturalism is the wave of the future, as all countries must participate in the global economy in order to thrive. I don't think that the people who protested are necessarily bad people. I don't think anyone is 100% bad or 100% evil. Most humans are somewhere in between. There is a gray area. As a general rule, we can increase our happiness by learning to coexist with people who are different from ourselves. They are not going anywhere, so we might as well learn how to get along and respect each other, just as we would like to be respected. So that's the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated. I hope this helps. Branden Noland. Okay. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with my answer? Let's head back over to the camera and have a conversation. Okay. Right. So, Luna, I think you make a good point that we're we all have prejudices, don't we? We all have biases. We're never going to get rid of that. Um, but at the very least, I think that we can adjust ourselves so that we get along better with other people and that they are able to live comfortably. So, yeah, but I totally agree with you that what can we say? Just because some people are prejudiced doesn't mean they're bad people, right? No. Oh, I'm glad you guys agree with me. I always try to be I always try to give a good answer. Thank you for pointing that out. Luna, I agree with you that when there's a group of people who seem to be not following the rules like everybody else, what that can do is create some resentment. So the resentment can lead to discrimination. For example, yeah, I have to admit, in the beginning, Americans, my people, didn't like wearing masks. And a lot of people around the world resented that. And they discriminated against Americans. Hey, let's not allow them in there. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. Right, and sort of commenting on what Bay said, uh, I'm not talking about Koreans. I'm just talking about this one group of people who lived in this neighborhood in Daegu who protested. So I'm sure that you guys are all you you guys wouldn't necessarily do the same thing. Yeah. Right. So Jung Dae-won says that people tend to reject something if it's different. Okay. So I just want to reiterate that I don't think Koreans are anything special. They're just people. I think that this situation could easily have happened, and it has happened too, in Europe, North America. This happens everywhere. So don't think that this is special. This is not a special situation. Yeah. I like that, Luna. When you go to Rome, do as the Romans do. Thank you very much for that. Good. So I'm going to share with you. I think we're doing some. We're on a good. Guys, I'm having class, so sorry about that. You guys can hear my coworkers. All right. So I'm going to share some more questions with you here. The first three questions. What common stereotypes can you think of? Can you think of some stereotypes? Have you ever experienced discrimination yourself? And finally, what are the pros and cons of multiculturalism? Think about it. Well, I'll discuss first the pros and cons of multiculturalism. If you're a minority, it definitely makes your life feel a lot more comfortable if you live in a multicultural society because everybody being different is the norm. So in countries and nations where there are many different types of people, um, being aware of multiculturalism and accepting it can help everybody get along, right? Because that's the reality of the situation. Sometimes it on the other hand, sometimes it causes problems when people, like you guys mentioned, when some people don't follow the rules or some people sort of do things that we can't really understand because they come from a different culture. Sometimes that can cause some friction. So there are pros and cons, aren't they? Okay. The next question is, do you have any experience adjusting to a different culture? Can you tell us the story? Do you have any experience adjusting to a different culture? Well, I can tell you from my personal experience, I came to Korea several years ago, and compared to my hometown, I'm originally from Northern California, Korean culture, it was really exciting because everything is so different. Uh, just not only the language, but just the way everybody sort of thinks about the world. I think sometimes it feels like people here are so much more connected to each other. Your lives are closer, so to speak. Bay, thank you for your comment. So if you're from a poor country, minority, female, you have a high chance of being discriminated at some point in your life. And yeah, I agree with that. I, I'm not necessarily from a poor country. I'm a man, I'm white, so I'm American, so my experience won't be the same as other people. And yeah, I totally agree with that. Hmm. Yeah. Luna, thank you for your comment. Right. So, Bay, your comment is really useful. You said that you try to adjust in society, but it's hard because we can't easily change the way people think. And to some extent, we can try to some extent, in order to survive, we have to change ourselves, don't we? Yeah, I had to change myself a lot in order to exist in this society. We can't expect the society, all the people around us, to change just because we're different. We have to change sometimes. Good. Yeah, I think I can relate to what you're saying. All right. So the next two questions, and these are the last questions for this part. What is the most interesting culture you can think of? How would you describe Korean culture? Okay. How would you describe Korean culture? Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. If you guys want to comment on it later, feel free to do so. Um, but I'm going to be moving on because this class, as I said in the beginning, is broken up into two parts, and we have a second letter. And actually about an entirely different topic. So let's consider that. But if you guys, if you have more to talk about the previous topic, please do so. Please continue to post, and I'll try to get to that as soon as I can. All right. So Ask Branden number 2. We're talking about gray divorce today, and the reason why I thought this would be interesting is because everybody knows who these people are. Bill Gates, Melinda Gates. We thought they were or at least I thought they were the ideal couple, but I was wrong because, nothing's perfect, and their marriage was no exception. So they're getting divorced, aren't they? And this brings us to our topic, gray divorce. So this refers to divorces involving spouses over the age of 50. So these days, the overall divorce rate is actually declining in the past 20 years. However, interestingly, it has doubled for the segment of the population over the age of 50. So isn't that interesting? Gray divorce. So let's consider this letter. Okay, so it looks like it's from a single woman in her 30s. Dear Professor Noland, I am a single woman in her 30s who is unsurprisingly experiencing some pressure from her parents and friends to get married and start a family. You know, the same old story. People are telling me things like, your biological clock is ticking, it's now or never, quit being so picky. Meanwhile, I have a lot of uncertainty about the future, and I am hesitant to make life-changing decisions if I don't know what the final outcome will be. Okay? I recently read a news article about the divorce of Bill and Melinda Gates. As someone who is thinking about marriage, I found this story to be really disturbing. I always thought of the Gates as the ideal couple. Bill always seemed kind and sincere, a man of integrity and honor. But now we know that the relationship had some serious problems. Here is one excerpt I found online. The couple officially announced their split on social media on May 3rd, saying, "We no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in this next phase of our lives." I guess this shouldn't be surprising since 50% of all marriages end in divorce. It's natural that humans grow and evolve as they get older. The problem is that a couple is likely to grow apart rather than together. I'm starting to question whether men and women are even meant to live under the same roof. Think about it. We have different desires, different interests, different hobbies. You have probably heard of the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Being with the same person day after day, year after year gets boring. Wow, okay. Movies try to convince us that love lasts forever, but the intense romance has an expiration date for everyone. One neurologist, Dr. Fred Knorr, said to expect the passion to last 2 to 3 years at most. Can we really blame people when they get bored with their spouse? When they start missing the excitement of romance and passion? Which brings me to my question. Are humans really cut out for monogamous relationships? Monogamous relationships. That means only two people, okay? You're committed to only one person. Throughout history, marriage has existed for various social, economic, and religious reasons. But are lifelong monogamous relationships really necessary for our happiness in this modern day and age? I guess I'm wondering if I should even bother. Professor Noland, I look forward to hearing what your viewers have to say about this. Thanks in advance. Okay, so that was a long one. Think about, what advice would you give this person? Why do you think the gray divorce is increasing? So think about it. Don't answer yet. Some vocabulary words. The writer says, people are telling me things like, your biological clock is ticking. It's now or never. Quit being so picky. So biological clock, this refers to the time frames in which biological processes happen. When we talk about biological clock, when we're talking about women, we're talking about the time frame in which women can reproduce. Okay, so there's a certain age where our ability to have children decreases. Usually, this is what we're thinking of when we talk about biological clock. Under the same roof, the writer says, I'm starting to question whether men and women are even meant to live under the same roof. Okay, so under the same roof just means to live in the same house or apartment. Oh, very common proverb. Familiarity breeds contempt. So this means that close association with someone causes you to dislike them. Being with the same person day after day, year after year, gets boring. So it's a very common proverb. Do you agree with this? I may ask you later. Cut out for something. To be suited for or capable of some activity. Are humans really cut out for marriage? For monogamous? I always get that mixed up. Monogamous relationships? Okay, so I think I may have talked too much. How would you respond? What advice would you give this person? So I'm going to copy and paste those questions in the chat box for our review and consideration. There you go. All right, switching the camera over. Okay, so Luna, that's a good point. You're saying that gray divorce is also called twilight divorce. I didn't know that there were actually two different ways to say this. Good point. Oh, I'm looking at over some of the comments that you left about the previous topic. I said I would get back to you, okay? So even though we moved to a new topic, I do want to give the old comments some attention. So Bay says the most interesting culture is US culture because many people regard the US as the most free society, I guess. And there's also the American dream. Okay, so there's there's a lot. There's a lot of these ideas, positive ideas about the U.S. culture. hmm Korean culture is very fast changing. Yeah, modern. Bali Bali, right? You guys always say that. Fast, fast. Yeah. Regarding the new questions I gave you, why do you think gray divorce is increasing? I think one reason is that young people just aren't getting divorced as often, right? So if you, I'm sorry, excuse me, young people just aren't getting married as often as they used to. So it's natural that if you don't get married, you can't get divorced. That could be one reason why the divorce rate is decreasing, because people are thinking deeper and are a little more calculating before they get into these situations. Luna, that's an interesting point. You've never seen people who got gray divorced. That's true. However, in the United States, at least, it is very common. So perhaps this trend hasn't come to Korea yet, if it ever will. Hmm. Yeah, I think Bill Gates, he's just another human, and unfortunately, the nature of our free press, famous people don't have privacy, do they? They just because he's a lot of money, everybody's really wondering where all the money is going, but it's none of our business. Why do we care? However, that doesn't change the fact that everybody's talking about this, right? I agree. Yeah. They only talk about their money. You know, I mentioned the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Why do you think that phrase has become so famous? Do you agree with it? hmm hmm Yeah, so Bay Frenchie, I think you make an interesting point. Like, why are we even talking about this? Why is this even a big deal? I mean, divorce happens all the time. These are just two people. They're two humans like the rest of us. And it's not, it shouldn't be a big deal. And I think I agree with you. It shouldn't be a big deal. However, based on the comments that we read online and the way people are talking about it, it's human nature. It's human nature to gossip. So, what can we do? Right. So, Luna is asking me to explain the meaning of familiarity breeds contempt. Uh, can anyone try to help her out? Does anybody know what that means? Okay, so Bay Frenchie says familiarity, I should enunciate. Familiarity breeds contempt then what about family members? We are so familiar to each other and we still love each other. Yeah, so Bei Frenchie, it looks like you disagree with that statement, don't you? Yeah. All right. So Luna, let me try to answer your question. When we say, it's a very common proverb. When we say familiarity breeds contempt, what we're saying is that, in the beginning, you start a relationship and everything's romantic. There's a lot of passion, a lot of, you really like each other. But over time, you start to notice things that annoy you. You start to notice things about your partner that are less than perfect. So because you have this familiarity and you know their true self, sometimes it can cause you to realize, hey, maybe this person wasn't what I thought they were in the beginning. Okay? So, does that make sense? Let me know if you need more clarification. Yeah. Jongdaewon, I think you make a good point. Sometimes women need to find their true self. And I think this is especially true in places where women get married. In some countries, women get married very young, like early 20s, everybody's already married. Uh, so, yeah, sometimes that does happen. I think that Koreans tend to get married a little later in life, but other countries are different. And when that happens, we never we never really have a chance to grow up. We never have a chance to find out who we are because we get married too early. So I think that's one advantage to waiting until later on in life. You need to find yourself. Mm-hmm. Jung Dae-won, you're right. So familiarity makes us feel comfortable. So when we're part of a family, we have children, we have a spouse, we have parents. Familiarity makes us draws us closer together. Ideally, I agree with that. So really, familiarity breeds contempt seems to be most applicable when you first start getting to know someone. You first start dating. But the whole point of being part of a family is to have that familiarity and you still love each other. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you guys said, it takes continual effort. So true. Good, good. Last question, guys. Last question. We all know people who have gotten divorced. What are the most common reasons a marriage fails? Last question of the day. Well, I think it really comes down to a lack of effort, right? Lack of effort. Over time, people drift apart, as the writer said. Yeah, I do agree with that. Hmm. There are so many various reasons, isn't it? Aren't there? Aren't there? But anyway, we're just about out of time, guys. I'm gonna have to end the class 5 minutes early. Luna, that's great. A lack of trust. Trust is one of the key components to a relationship. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that out. Different personality, right? An outgoing person and an introverted person, sometimes they can't get along because they want to do different things. Yeah. Irreconcilable differences. I like that. That's a common thing. Okay, guys, I just want to say you had a lot of good ideas today, but I'm going to have to end class. Thank you so much for your comments. And if I missed your comment, if there were so many that maybe I didn't see it. So I do apologize for that. You're always welcome to join my chats and comment. Say what you think. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay? See you later. Bye. Oh yeah, it was hard. Hopefully not too hard. Okay. See you later, guys. Bye.